Hey guys, in this video we'll be continuing with the video tutorial series on Python. Today we'll be continuing with exceptions. If you haven't seen the previous videos in the playlist, check them out because you won't understand what's happening. So if you really don't have time for that, basically this one's okay because it's not really continuing on a previous exact previous code, but we are going over topics that I've already discussed. So you can watch them. We rewatch the playlist starting at the beginning. So we'll just start here. This is going to be an example of what happens if you don't handle an IO exception. So here I'll just have a def main. So I have a main function. So we'll just say input file, or it's just file name, whatever, points to we're going to call the input function. We're going to say enter a file name. Okay, so we could do that. So we could enter a path here, maybe. File name or file path. I'll try the path, see if it works from input. If not, we'll have to try hard code it from like hard code file name instead. By hard coding, I mean like a line of code like this instead of from input. Okay, so here we'll just have an in file. We'll create a file object. So we'll call it in file because we're going to take input from the file. We'll point it to the open function. Here we'll pass. What we can do here is we can actually just call this variable file name. In the previous videos, if you've been watching, I've just been doing the path in here, or the name, but both ways work. So this is a good practice too. Whatever, you'll see this as well. So we'll say in file points to open file name, comma, we'll open it in read mode. After that, we will call the read method to just read the contents. So we'll say file contents. File contents points to in file dot. If you're using pycharm or any good IDE, maybe Visual Studio, and you type in file dot, you have the exact same code here. You should be able to see a lot of methods and functions. So we're going to just call the read function infile.read. That's going to basically save the whole file under one variable. We've gone over this, I believe, at the start of the input-output part of the series. So this is not going to be line by line. I believe this is just going to be saving all the data in the file to one variable. After that, we'll just call print. So we'll print the file contents. And after all that, we'll close the file. And then after all that, we'll just call the main function here. So what the object of this code is, what the objective is to show you guys that if you enter a wrong file path or file name, you're gonna get the Python compiler will or the interpreter will throw you a IO exception. So if you have a path that's wrong, you'll get an IO exception. That's the whole point. So if I save this and run it, enter a file name or file path. So let me try it first. I'll enter a Windows file path. Okay, so it was able to open it that way. So if you guys have watched the previous tutorials, I've usually entered that file path as a string here in the open method, or sorry, the open function. But this time it also works if you enter it through the input function, so both ways work. So if I run this again, so if I run the program again and I enter a file name or file path, this time, let's just say I do the same thing. And here I just type in, let's say we have a file 10, or file 11, file 12, whatever, .txt. And let's say this file doesn't exist, and we try to open it. We're going to get an exception here. So if you read the traceback, it says traceback most recent call last, so it's telling us the file at this path that I entered. Well, it's not the exact path, but a different path is telling us basically at this location that basically we couldn't find anything, so it's trying to search for it in this path, in this module. It's saying, okay, well, in line 7, that's where the traceback started. In module main, then it's saying, okay, secondly, then at this file, at this path, that module, now it's jumped to line 3, because this was the main function call, from which we call the main function, right? Then in that case we're going to jump to the function definition, def main, then we're going to hit line 2, enter file name or file path, which we did. Then it's saying, okay, well, what happened is at line 3 we had a problem. We had an exception, an exception was thrown at line 3. It's saying, okay, well, in main, at the line in file points to open, then passing in file name as a parameter, comma, and then read mode. It's saying the file, so what happened was file not found error, which is a type of IO exception. It's more general in this case, so it's saying, okay, well, there was a file not found error. Error number 2, it's saying, no such file or directory at this path. And it's saying process finished with exit code 1, which means that there was an error. If it's 0, that means there was no error. So that's what happens. Basically, that's a type of IO exception. So there is no exception handling in this code. So it only works if the file exists or the path is correct to an existing file. So an exception will be raised, however, if the file specified by the user does not exist. So that's what happened. So the open function raised the exception, the traceback error message, basically file not found exception was raised. when a file IO operation fails. So then now what we can do is we can handle this, we can try to handle this, so let's try to handle it now. Excuse me, so we'll just we'll redo this so we'll do the same code and we'll handle it. So we'll say def main. We'll say file name points to the input function. I'll prompt the user for a file name, so enter file name. So then here, so if you notice this time we're starting the try block more inside the main function. You can also put it at the top here. You can put it here. You can put it around the function call, I believe. You can put it in a method. You can put it in a function, a separate function other than main. Separate method. You can put them at different places. So this is one place to put the try block. So now remember it's gonna indent now. So we'll say in file points to open, pass in file name. Actually, sorry, no string here, just the file name variable, comma, we're passing in read mode. I forgot that. Actually, I don't think a comma was placed there. Okay, read mode. In file points to open file name, comma, read mode. What's wrong with that one? In file. Okay, so we'll just go with that for now, and then here we'll have file contents points to. I think it's actually still waiting for the except statement. That's why. So we'll have file contents here points to in file.read. So now we'll just print the contents. We'll print the file contents. We'll close the file. Then here we'll call the except. So this will be outside the indentation from the try block, I believe. I'll say except IOError. So this is going to probably take a branch of IO exceptions. It's going to handle a branch of them. So it's saying, okay, well, if there's an input-output error or exception, then we're going to handle all of them. You can probably handle the file not found exception itself. You can do that, but here we'll just call the IOError exception. We'll say, okay, we'll accept IOError here. We're going to handle it. We're going to say, okay, well, we're just going to print. In this case, we're just going to print something. We're just going to say exception error occurred. We'll just say that's an IO exception. So we can also print at file, comma, we can pass in file name. And after all that, we can just call the main function here outside. So that'll be everything. We'll just save and run it. So enter a file name, let's just say some random thing that didn't work. So it's saying, okay, well, exception error occurred, IO exception at file this file. But if we run it with a correct path, it should work as well. So I'll enter a path that I have. So this is from the input output stuff that we did. This is the file that we used. If you guys saw that part of the series, this is just some random stuff that was in the file. As you can see, it didn't throw an exception in that case because the path was correct, or the file was found. So there was an existing file, there was no exception. So we're just going to end it here for this video. Hopefully you guys understand how to handle an IO exception. So this is just basically some ways how to handle an IO exception. Of course, you can we'll get into it later on, but we're going to show how you can possibly get the file name again in the handle. So you can print like, okay, error, file not found, please re-enter. Then we can call the input function again, and basically maybe even call this code again. We can loop it through to make sure that it's all set up properly to continue running until the user enters a proper path. So we'll get into that later on. Thanks for watching. If you guys like the video, you can subscribe to the channel if you like the video. If you guys want to see more programming tutorials and investing tutorials, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.